Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Monday morning to you all. Hope you guys are getting up, feeling well out there, making the most out of a Monday morning, which I know is not always great vibes for everybody, but certainly hope you guys are doing well this morning. And I appreciate you folks joining me as we try to figure out what's going to happen weather-wise for your Monday, for your start of your work week. I'm not expecting a super active day. It's almost just if I could point to one day that's just a typical kind of summer flow out there, I would point to today. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about who could see some strong to severe storms today, because there's certain areas that could certainly see some severe weather. So we need to figure that out. Want to note that the information I'm giving you could change on the next update or two. I always try to mention that, especially the Storm Prediction Center. So we might get an update from a marginal to a slight risk somewhere. So don't want you guys to think that I'm giving you guys kind of older information or anything like that. We just, have updates throughout the day as confidence decreases or increases. So with that being said, if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. If not had a chance to answer the comments from last night's video or anything like that, I'll try to get to that this morning. So I don't want you guys to think I'm ignoring you or anything like that. I take pride in trying to acknowledge every single comment out there, whether it's just leaving a like or love or just commenting back to you guys, depending on what it is. So you guys got anything that I can pray about, pray over? As always, please put those in the comments below. It gives me an opportunity to pray over it, and it gives others an opportunity to do so too. So let's get rolling this morning. Let's take a look at water vapor loop like we always do. And we'll open this thing up, get her going, and she's working for us, so we're good to go. And, if you've been tuning in, the last couple days, or especially last night's video, I discussed kind of the pattern on what's going on between now and the next few days in great detail, but we still got the bridge going on top of the western U.S. We got a lot of monsoonal moisture trapped underneath it, and then we have a deep trough right over the eastern U.S., okay? And, the boundary isn't exactly right there by any means. I would probably dig this a little bit further south, but this is in general the pattern. Trough setting up over the eastern U.S., northeast. If you don't know what that means, just think of that as something that brings cooler air, drier air, more stable air, and typically it just means there's a buckle in the jet stream. And basically wherever the jet is, that's typically where all the weather flies through, and you can actually see it pretty well. You see the wider colors, the lighter colors on your screen, which is basically everywhere south of this line in general. That just means there's more moisture in the atmosphere, and basically this big explosion of white you see on your screen, that's where we have a lot of shower and storm activity this morning. Two different areas, one right here, right in the Great Plains, and one down here near the Mississippi Valley in Arkansas. We got a area of storms that's not showing up very well on model guidance right now. And then as things kind of rotate into kind of a clockwise flow, kind of like this, you have that general flow setting up over the western U.S. just like that. So I think we're going to get another area of big-time storms that gets going down here in southern Arizona. More storms that just kind of ride through the Rockies and then come out east of the Rockies into areas in the northern plains into this area. And then we have some storms actually branching off and going this way. And I would actually, put this line right in here and broaden it out kind of like that. If that makes any sense here. But stalled frontal boundary right into here. So there's still a moist atmosphere here in the southeast. So anybody kind of east of this boundary or south of it is likely going to get more shower and storm activity today. So that means Florida, eastern sections of the Carolinas, all the way up to maybe even northern Virginia. Places like that are going to get some summertime showers and storms. This is nothing totally unusual. It's a little cooler than average up in the northeast for sure. Waking up to a nice crisp morning again. I'm very jealous. So that's kind of what's going on out there based off water vapor loop. We look at what's falling at the surface. We'll get this back in motion because she likes to glitch a little bit for me when I have it up for too long waiting to start the video. But a big area, pretty organized showers and storms ongoing here in eastern Nebraska. It's moved into extreme western portions of Iowa. This will continue to kind of move downstream on the eastern side of this ridge. That's this high pressure that's obviously a little bit further west, and will continue to move due south. So, not St. Louis, but Kansas City, waking up to a little bit of rain this morning. It's definitely raining really good in Omaha, Lincoln, Nebraska. This will continue to surge southward, and as it moves, it will probably take more of a southern movement to it, more so than that kind of southeast sort of pull that it's doing now. But we go down here and we look at this area of storms. It's not severe warned as of right now. This is surging into northern Louisiana. Watch out Monroe. Maybe even this might even try to develop a little bit closer to Shreveport. As of now, it looks like it'll miss that area. But I can tell you the models aren't picking up on this very well at all. Not even a little bit. So, I'll talk about that here in a second. There's actually a little bit of a spin with this. Makes me think we have a little bit of an MCV, mesoscale convective vortex. That's the acronym is MCV, but a little bit of a spin out here. So this will continue. These Ridge Rider kind of complexes of storms are always very difficult to figure out, guys. They really are. And we just try to do our best to figure it out the day of. But we look at the Storm Prediction Center on what could happen today. Like I said, you don't have any slight risk out there as of right now. I could see that changing. We might get an upgrade to a slight risk down here in southern Arizona. I think southern Arizona potentially could definitely be the breadwinner for the worst storms today. There's a potential for it. And when you get into this monsoon season out here in the Southwest, you definitely get some very photogenic photos. Sometimes you can get these haboobs that get going, basically where you get these big storms that you got outflow boundaries out ahead of it, that rain cooled air, and that boundary out ahead of the storm kicks up all this dust, sand, things like that. You definitely could be one of those days. We'll see what happens. It's always interesting to watch from kind of the outside looking in. But marginal risk up here in the Great Plains. Marginal risk down here, on the western side of the Mississippi Valley. And you can see, ridge of high pressure right into here somewhere. And kind of the storms are just kind of rotating around this area clockwise. So we got a marginal risk for the extreme eastern areas of the southeast, eastern U.S. This extends all the way up to Richmond, Virginia, all the way down to Miami, Florida. I think we can get some big-time storms today in this area as you have some lingering moisture along and just outside this boundary, this stalled frontal boundary. So I think we can get some showers and numerous showers and storms up here in the Northeast. I just don't think they're really going to hit severe limits by any means. But, just a very small chance of wind to 5% risk, and then a small chance of hail in both of these regions right in here. The brain farting. Watches and warnings and advisories out there. Everybody in the orange, heat advisories. Okay, everybody in this purple color, that is excessive heat warnings. I think Dallas, Fort Worth region, even Shreveport, I think you guys get well above 100, which isn't really unusual this summer. I think Dallas could try to get to 105 today. But I saw a 7-day forecast in Louisiana, in New Orleans, Louisiana. I think your average high is 92, 93 degrees. And basically, your 7-day forecast from a local news channel down there had the high temperature of 100 degrees between today and 7 days from now. I mean, one thing to note, guys, and if you don't know, yes, it gets very hot in the coastal regions along the Gulf Coast and the southeastern U.S. But a lot of times you get what you call a sea breeze. A sea breeze develops and basically moves sometimes very far inland, especially earlier in the summer. But as you get deeper in the summer, it doesn't move as far inland. But that sea breeze typically will allow your temperatures along the coastal regions to really spike kind of earlier in the day. So typically, I don't know if you ever noticed that vacationing, your hottest time of the day at the beach is normally around 10:30, 11:30 a.m. And then the sea breeze kicks in, moves in, cools you down a few more degrees. Now, you barely can notice it. But what I'm saying is, it typically is a lot hotter 30 miles inland off the coastline than it is right along the coastline. For example, here in South Carolina, a great example of that, and for you folks tuning in the Carolinas, you might can agree or attest to this. In Conway in Horry County, where Myrtle Beach is located, it can get to 95, 96 degrees, but Myrtle Beach might just be chilling in the mid to upper 80s, and it's a very short drive. So that's a good example of that. But so what I'm saying is to have temperatures over around 100 degrees, upper 90s along these coastal regions, and I know New Orleans isn't on the coast, but it's very close to the ocean, it's very hot, and that is miserable. So you guys stay cool down here. But we move to the update from the National Hurricane Center. Guys, these two areas, we talked about them last night. They're of no concern. That's why I haven't discussed them in great detail. This has an 80% chance to develop into a depression sometime today, within the next 7 days. If it's going to do it, it's probably going to do it here in the next 2 to 3 days. And then we still got this little low pressure that's since moved off the coast of the mid-Atlantic southeast. It has a 30% chance to develop. But both of these are going to, especially this one, 97L, is going to run out of time because it's going to start to enter some cooler waters here in the next few days. So we'll continue to watch these. The worst thing it's going to do is take a name off the hurricane list, which would be Emily. So outside of that, the tropics are pretty quiet. You look at both of them, the sun is beginning to set up. I actually had to look at this for about 30, 40 seconds when I was making this video. It just was mesmerizing. It was really cool watching the sun come up on the Atlantic. Beautiful. As you can tell, this is the true vision off Tropical Tidbits, which, guys, I want to reiterate, all this is available for free. The guy that runs this, Levi, he's awesome. And, I mean, all kinds of weather. You can look at everything, okay? It's all free. But you got 96L here. You got 97L here. And we'll see if 96L will try to get going a little bit later today into maybe a tropical depression, tropical storm sometime throughout the week. Let's take a look at the southeast today. Really, if you normally click on the southeast frame for Arkansas, Louisiana, Missouri, hold tight. I'm going to show you guys in the south central time frame, which is typically where I should show it. But a broad look at everybody else in the southeast. Storms will quickly develop as early to mid-afternoon in Florida, kind of develop in the western peninsula of Florida, and then drift eastward, where I think the eastern portion of the state could get worse storm action than maybe the western portion. So we'll zoom into this area here in a second. Then we got storms firing off here in the Carolinas, even as far north as Virginia. So this is kind of what's going to happen today. So we get a little bit closer to Florida. This morning, not a whole lot going on. Then storms quickly get going I would say just east of Tampa Bay and, in Fort Myers, and then work their way, towards Orlando throughout the early to mid-afternoon time frame. Might cluster up, and I mean, this is 5 p.m. in Florida. Looks like you're getting some big-time storms. These storms could pack a little bit more of a punch than your average summer storm. So please be aware of this. These eventually create some nasty weather conditions for the eastern sections of Florida, like just the Space Coast, Melbourne, all the way up to Daytona Beach, as far north as Jacksonville, Fort Lauderdale, Miami. All these places right here can get some big storms. And then by the time you get to 8, 9, 10 p.m., I think that things chill out for the most part. Could get some development overnight here in southwest Florida. But outside of that, pretty chill conditions. We take it up to the Carolinas, and I just want to show you guys off, here. If you're tuning in from the northeast portion of North Carolina, extreme southeast Virginia, there's a little bit of a pocket of dry air, allowing for temperatures to dip a good 5 to 6, 7 degrees lower than everybody else. So, you're up here in Raleigh, Rocky Mounts, even Greenville. Heck, maybe even all the way up to Elizabeth City. You guys are nice. I mean, some areas have dipped down below 60 degrees into the upper 50s. So you're cooler than some areas in the mountains. So it's pretty nice to see everybody else 60s and 70s. There is a little bit of a dry air that has allowed temperatures to cool into the upper 60s. For example, my house hit 69, 68.8 so far that I've seen this morning, which, is always nice in late July, early August. Okay. It's a couple degrees below average. I'll take the 60s any time in July or August, that's for sure. But storms today, we'll get this going forward. We'll take it all the way out to about 2 p.m. Little bit of pop-up storm action ongoing really anywhere in Virginia, especially the central to eastern portion of the state. Got some pop-up downpours, and then bang, we take it to about 5 p.m. You got some big storms popping off around Fayetteville, up to Raleigh potentially, Chesterfield, South Carolina. Some storms popping off, maybe north of Charleston, and then they immediately form, and then they drift east or southeastward, and they flow through the area, and these can produce some gusty winds, some small hail. Can't rule out a tornado, never can. But these flow through, I think, the PD of South Carolina, the Sandhills of North Carolina, southeast NC, the eastern plains of North Carolina. Could get some big storms today. I think it's very possible. Watch out Myrtle Beach a little bit later. And the HRRR model likes, and I really hope this happens. We got completely bamboozled yesterday with the storms here in Columbia, South Carolina. We've only picked up, and I know there's a lot of people just saying, well, we haven't picked up anything in the last 20 days. But here in my neck of the woods, we picked up a little over a half an inch of rain in the last 21 days here in July. And when it's blazing hot, that is just not enough rain. So I'm starting to get these little dry spots in my yard where my sprinklers don't hit as well. But at least we're getting some. But maybe later tonight, maybe another area of storms kind of gets going here, delivers some rain further north and northwest into the central areas of South Carolina. Well, basically that frontal boundary will begin to kind of dissipate and kind of move a little bit further north. So that means the storms will try to fire up a little bit north. But like I said, this isn't exactly the way this is going to happen today. I'm sure the storms will look a little bit different. But I can tell you both short-range model guidance yesterday did pretty well. The NAM and the HRRR model for the Carolinas and Georgia. Georgia had some big-time storms yesterday. So let's take a look at the Northeast. Trying to fight off a sneeze here. We take it all the way to 1-2 p.m. I think you can get a lot of scattered showers and downpour activity in northern and western Maine today. Even some action in northern sections of Vermont and New Hampshire. These fly through the area. These could produce some small hail. I could definitely see it. Really anybody in Maine, guys, could see this. I would say it develops earlier in the day in western Maine, sweeps all the way across through the down east areas and maybe eastern sections of Maine by the time we get later into the afternoon. But we definitely could see it, and I definitely could see it getting going here in the southern tier of New York State, eventually maybe drifting into the Finger Lakes region up here near Watertown. You guys could definitely get some pop-up activity, even some isolated to scattered downpours in southern New England, quite possible, with just a little bit of a flow with this troughing setting up. But it's very stable, almost, I wouldn't say fall kind of air, but cooler temperatures, stable atmosphere. The ingredients are not really there for any kind of severe weather out of these storms, but you definitely are going to get some showery downpour activity, especially in Maine and western sections of New York State. These eventually could drift into northern PA. You can't rule it out later into the evening hours. So outside of that, it's pretty quiet. A little bit closer look at this, and yeah, I mean, just some scattered downpours. We'll stop it right here. You got some downpours kind of riding south of the Finger Lakes. They could be right on top of them. But, you know, so I guess what I'm saying is don't be surprised. You get a downpour today in the middle of a pretty nice day. I won't be surprised one bit. I definitely think almost all of Maine will at least see a little bit of rain up there today. The south central U.S. will include Missouri, Arkansas, and Louisiana in this. We get going here in time. What I want to note really quick here. This is what the HRRR model was saying is supposed to be happening as of 7 a.m. Let's back it up. As of 6 a.m., which is we're 20 minutes past that here in the south central U.S. Okay, this is what's actually going on right now. Okay, looks totally different, right? You got an area of storm. So I can already tell you right off the dot, the model is not doing very well picking up on this. So we can look at this until the cows come home, right? But, you know, it's not going to be dead accurate at all. And it never is, but some days it's better than the other. Well, we'll take a broad look at this. I can tell you Texas and Oklahoma is just going to roast alive. You guys, I wouldn't expect really much of any moisture except a very lucky soul that I think should play the lottery getting an isolated downpour. And you get this going here, I think you're going to get some showers later on from this area of rain up here in Nebraska and Iowa. So I think that throughout Missouri today, you guys could experience some rain. But we're going to go on and zoom into these areas. Missouri, we'll compare the HRRR model with the NAM. But takes this rain that's right here, right now, in this region right here. You got rain already entering the northwest portion of the state and then northeast areas of Kansas. This will continue. Nothing severe, just some heavy rain, really, and some rumbles of thunder most likely. But we'll take it back, make sure. Okay, right here. And this will continue to trail off into the state. So you start to get into northern sections of Missouri. You know, you folks up here like St. Joseph, the rain will pick up here in the next hour or two. And I think some rain will overspread most of northern Missouri. And this eventually could make it into the St. Louis area. Midway this afternoon, I've heard some people around this area starting to get kind of dry. So hopefully this area of rain will make it all the way through Missouri. The HRRR model says it's going to remain pretty dry over here in southwest Missouri. But it does tap into some of those thermodynamics in the Boot Hill, Missouri, and you could get some stronger storms down here. You know, for you folks down here in Poplar Bluff, I think places like this, just the boot heel. Watch out for some storms later this afternoon into this evening, quite possible. And then we get into the evening, we get into the overnight hours, and then the HRRR model likes some storms firing up in the middle of the state somewhere around 2 to 3 a.m. And then we could wake up to a lot of storm activity, heavy rain activity potentially in central, maybe northern Missouri, southeast Missouri. So we have to watch this little area right here, this little streaker of rain that potentially gets going. We could be waking up to some storms and talking about this as we're waking up tomorrow morning. The NAM on how this can potentially unfold today for you folks in Missouri. We'll kind of go through this really quick. The NAM, I think, and the HRRR model are pretty much following the same thing. Has this area of moisture completely dissipating. Okay, and the HRRR model does too, but it might not. Okay, so, one thing it does agree with is that we're going to get some areas of storms later tonight across northern and eastern Missouri. And the NAM is a lot more aggressive with this. The NAM around 3 a.m. has some pretty powerful storms in northern Missouri, and then eventually sweeping down to central Missouri. So it's around 5 a.m. Missouri time, central time out here tomorrow morning. And I would watch out, Columbia, down to Farmington, even St. Louis, Jefferson City. The NAM has some pretty powerful storms that you guys are waking up to tomorrow morning. So be aware of this. I would not be surprised if they issue a slight risk for Missouri if model guidance can kind of come in together, but for now they're not. So we take it down here to my folks in Arkansas, and we'll include Louisiana in this too, even though it doesn't show all of Louisiana, but we'll take it back to the 06Z. Remember, you got those ongoing storms that can make it all the way into southern Louisiana later today that I just showed you guys. But I can tell you outside of that, Arkansas, I think northeast Arkansas, you guys could certainly see some storm activity around Jonesboro, things like that, people like that. A little bit probably tomorrow morning, but throughout most of the day, doesn't show much at all in Arkansas. We back it up. I think some storms could enter the northeast portion of the state a little bit later today, this evening, but outside of that, not a whole lot going on. The NAM, what does the NAM show for Arkansas? Throughout the day, not a whole lot either. I mean, it's picking up on this area of storms a lot better than the HRRR model is in southern Arkansas, but it doesn't show much going on the rest of the day in Arkansas. It really doesn't, but we'll see. That it could be totally different. The NAM for Louisiana, we'll watch as this storm tries to make it all the way down to the Lake Charles area, all the way to the Gulf Coast line. It is quite possible. And then overnight tonight, not a whole lot going on. So, that doesn't mean everything that I just showed you could be totally different today in these three states. But, certainly you got a marginal risk. Watch out for some pop-up activity. Down here in the south central U.S., guys, well over 100 degrees. Brutal temperatures. Well over 100 degrees all the way up to Kansas. And then there's a pretty stout cutoff where it goes from the 90s to just the 80s. Really the hundreds to just the 80s. Even some 100-degree readings in southeast Colorado. Very hot in Texas, guys. This is brutal heat. The further east you work into this heat, the higher the humidity as you get the Gulf flow. This is not only do you have the high temperatures well over 100 degrees, you look at the heat indices, the feel-like temperatures, guys. Okay, 111 degrees in Shreveport. Well over 110 degrees across the bayou in southern Louisiana. Brutal temperatures today. Eastern areas of Texas, just very, very hot. So look at the north central U.S. Not a whole lot going on today. Some showers could make their way into the UP of Michigan, and then just the state of Michigan in general. Some showers are possible in northeast Wisconsin later tonight. Outside of that, guys, there's not really much to mention on the south central U.S. There really isn't. Just enjoy the nice day. The northern plains, a little different. It could get quite active. Not as active as yesterday. It could be more active, more widespread activity, but the storm activity is not going to be near as severe, I think, as yesterday. But we'll see. But you get this in action here. We take it to about 3, 4 p.m. Numerous shower and storm activity popping off in Wyoming, northern Colorado, a lot of rainfall. And these could produce a good bit of rain today. And then some of these storms, I mean, look at this little lone one here in western North Dakota, getting all mixed up. Western South Dakota, you got one lone little cell right here that could pack a punch, right here. Where's that? Right near Rapid City. Okay. And then basically just a plume of moisture as we're getting into 9-10 p.m. begins to surge into Nebraska again. It seems like all this activity always gets in Nebraska after the sun goes down. That has been the general theme for you folks in Nebraska, Scottsbluff. I think some rain can make it to you guys after the sun goes down. And then a huge area of rain, I think, is going to be potentially there for sorry, I keep having to clear my throat, guys. For Greeley, Fort Morgan, Sterling, you guys could see a rainy late afternoon, evening time frame, and some of these could pack a punch as far as storm activity. So more consolidated rain into southern Wyoming, northern and northeast areas of Colorado, and then western Nebraska. So you guys certainly are going to get a lot of rain in this area. And a lot of rain for these areas is a half inch, an inch of rain in 24 hours. So you're definitely going to see that in certain regions. And then some of these storms will pack a punch up here today. I think, just some gusty winds, some small hail. But so southern Wyoming, northern and northeast Colorado, western Nebraska, western South Dakota. I think you guys stand the best chance for some storms today. And then by the time I'm waking up tomorrow morning, this is saying it's going to fully be dissipated. But definitely a big time moist flow on the northern portion of this high pressure flowing through this region. Western U.S., same deal. I mean, you got a lot of activity. I mean, we freeze it right here. You got scattered showers, even some storm activity in eastern Nevada. Utah, a lot of action ongoing, especially in the northern and western portion of the state. And then you see the darker colors, the reds and the oranges down here. That means these are going to pack a punch down here. These is definitely some strong to severe storms in Arizona. We're actually going to zoom in on Arizona here in a second. But you stop it here. There's a lot of activity ongoing. We already discussed Wyoming and Colorado, but I mean, you even got a lot of shower activity ongoing in New Mexico, especially western New Mexico. Some showers ongoing in southern and southwest California, and you keep these going. And I mean, look at Arizona. So let's actually zoom into Arizona. I mean, look at this. So we get into about 2 p.m. pop-up shower and storm activity is ongoing, and I mean, really anybody. I could name off almost every town and city in Arizona, and pretty much everybody stands a pretty decent chance unless you're in extreme southwest areas of Arizona maybe. But Tucson, Phoenix, Flagstaff, I mean Prescott, or Prescott, however way y'all pronounce it. I had my cousin lived out in that region. I believe he lived in Phoenix, and he said people pronounced it different, but maybe you guys don't. You guys correct me. I'm not going to be offended. But definitely a lot of activity. I mean, Arizona, it gets popping off here. Definitely a little bit more quieter in the southwest portion of the state, but I'm telling you, some of these are going to be strong to severe, and they're going to flow in, and they might really kick up a lot of like I said, you might get one of those haboobs today that we see on TV. That really does happen. I've always wanted to go out there and be in the middle of one and play Sandstorm. If you don't know where Sandstorm is, definitely look it up. It's a great song that we play here at Williams-Brice Stadium here in South Carolina. But this is definitely could be one of those days. I think we're going to get a lot of storm activity in Phoenix today, starting off as early as 2 to 3 p.m. And then, there could be pockets of a 1/4 inch to 1 inch of rain. So you guys will stay cooler today in Arizona because of this rain that gets popped up off early in the afternoon. It's going to be kind of one of those days where I know my buddy also told me that the yards go from like just burnt and crisp one morning to just green the next if you just get like a 1/4 inch of rain. So I bet that's wild to witness. You guys tell me if that's true. But definitely a corridor of rain from Arizona up to Utah, up to Colorado and Wyoming. So temperatures today, hot in the deep south, typical summer kind of heat, a little bit cooler once you get into the Carolinas, and definitely cooler in the mid-Atlantic, 70s, even some 60s in the higher elevations up here in the Northeast. Very nice conditions. The Midwest, a little bit cooler today, a little bit more comfortable, 80s, 70s and 80s for the Ohio Valley, 80s and 70s for the north central U.S., and then you got the dome of heat in the south central U.S., well over 100 for these areas. And, very hot up in here in the Montana. The high plains are very hot, but you might get some shower and storm activity to cool you guys down pretty quickly today. But it'll get very hot very quick today. 90s, somebody will hit 100 degrees in Montana most likely. The Northwest, a little bit cooler. But, yeah. Have a great Monday, guys. God bless all y'all, and I'll talk to you soon.